why it's really important to use it or lose it when it comes to movement and range of motion. So there's a few implications that are long-term, especially when it comes to aging and perhaps arthritis and pain. So the old cliche, use it or lose it, is very true when it comes to our biology and what our body is capable of doing and how long it's going to be capable of doing that. You always have to be giving your ranges of motion, your body, your strength, whatever, a reason for it to be there. Otherwise, it won't. Our bodies always try and find the path of least resistance, and it's always trying to conserve energy. It's always trying to conserve range of motion. That's why it's so hard to get strength, to get range of motion, to get faster, and so forth. It takes time, and it takes a progressive overload to achieve those things. So we have Stickman here. Stickman has a shoulder range of motion of about right there. That's going to be indicated by the blue and his potential range of motion. So Stickman uses his range of motion all the time, and he progressively overloads it, and he's giving it a reason to be there. So Stickman's happy, he owns all of that range of motion, and nothing happens. So hypothetically, Stickman gets lazy. Stickman doesn't do shoulder things up there anymore. He no longer progressively overloads things. He no longer strength trains up there. He doesn't do it. His arm gradually comes down here the whole time. So what now Stickman's shoulder flexion looks like is probably about here. So over time, your body, again, being the conservative body that it is, will reduce the active range of motion and the need for the range of motion to even be up there. So now Stickman's range of motion is probably here. So things that we see often is that now, 20 years down the road, Stickman wants to do things that require shoulder flexion up here that he used to do, he or she used to do, right? Then he just does it right away. And he goes, ow, shoulder hurts now. I used to be able to lift my arm up here. I got lazy, didn't give it enough experience, range, control, strength, anything like that. So my body adapted down. Ooh, I want to be like I was 20 years ago and do the things up here. I got hurt. I'm getting too old for this. That's why aches and pains, blah, 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 blah. Totally wasn't that you got lazy, didn't do the things that you used to do, and didn't give your body a reason to give you a shoulder to go that high, right? Right. So Stickman gets hurt. So now he's feeling ouchies in the shoulder. Well, ouchies in the shoulder and how pain kind of works, pain's really complicated. So if someone ever tells you you're in pain, do this, might not be the most true thing. There's a lot of variables that go into pain, but what we know is that pain can be sensitive and pain is always trying to protect you. So what happens is, this is where, let's call the injury occurs. This location is where pain should be felt because there may be tissue damage from him trying to do things that he wasn't prepared to do. What your body will actually do is probably start to feel pain somewhere down here. Not where anything is actually damaged, but in kind of a defense system to prevent you from getting into the damaged stuff to prevent further damage. What does this do? This takes your shoulder that was that big, now it's kind of here, and now this is the comfortable range of motion. And we'll just assume you have a range of motion throughout the entire shoulder here. So we're just talking about this stuff. So now, this is the pain-free stuff. So right in this circle of the shoulder is pain-free. So that would be this range of motion. As soon as you get to here, you start to feel pain, but really the damage is way up here. And it is before your actual potential. So how do we go about this? What we should be doing is moving through this pain-free range as often as possible. What we're trying to do is convince the body that, yes, this is pain-free, so you should let me use this range of motion more often, more often, more often. What we tend to do as humans, as populations, or with misguided information, is we tend to jam into either a sensitivity of pain or the actual tissue damage. What will that do? That will take your pain-free range and continue to increase the sensitivity of the pain. You continue to jam and you continue to jam, therefore your pain-free range gets smaller and smaller and smaller. What you should have done is recognized, hey, my body is telling me something. My body's pretty good at being safe and these defense mechanisms. So if I'm feeling some sensitivity right here, I should respect that for a little bit. So I'm going to do my cars, do ranges of motion that don't really hurt. This is the common sense that's not so common. What that does is slowly over time decrease the sensitivity of the pain, and it will slowly move up and up and up until we're closing the gap on where the tissue damage is and where the sensitivity is. Why is that important? Because now we can start to work on the actual tissue that is damaged, because force and strength training is the actual way to rehab this scenario, to get it back to strong enough to handle whatever made it hurt. But also, as you can see, the surface area of this pain-free range is increasing, 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 right? So that is how we slowly push the ceiling on pain and sensitivity and increase the usable range of motion of our shoulder, which allows us to do more things with the shoulder. Sports, life event, whatever it is. So another implication, pain, maybe some arthritis. Arthritis can be seen as like a biological rust, right? The safest place for a plane to be is in the air, right? Because in the hangar, it doesn't do anything, doesn't really get maintained, slowly starts to rust is the old analogy. When it's flying, it's being used, it has a reason to be maintained, so on and so forth. So with age, either we're running into some painful scenarios, we're jamming into the pain, and we're shifting our range of motion down, 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 or maybe it's right around here. Or we're just not using that which we could be using, right? And we're just giving this range of motion the reason to be there. But life doesn't care, A, or B, we are ignorant or don't understand that to the information, and then we try and do things here. So that causes the damage, the pain, or the whatever. And so our body tends to just say, hey, you should live down here because you're just not giving me a good enough reason to own that. But there is now this gray area. And just like rust likes to find things that aren't being used, starts to fill in. What is that? Yep, that's a partial cause for arthritis. There's many other reasons, genetics and things like that, I understand. But if you think about it as like a biological rusting, that which isn't used isn't given a reason to be healthy. If you're not using this range of motion, you're not feeding it nutrition, you're not giving it a reason to be healthy, you're not flooding it with the nutrients in the blood and the water that it needs to be a healthy non-arthritic joint, you're just letting it go to waste. So that's why it is really, really important in this mini arthritic and pain scenario to use it or lose it. Not just for the sake of your sport or your daily activity, but also thinking long term when it comes to joint health, your best way of fighting arthritis, and your best way to manage pain intelligently so we don't just jam into things and create a tiny little